The sun was just starting to dip, casting long shadows across the open dojo. The air was electric. Every eye in the room was glued to the center. Steven Seagal stood tall, chest out, his trademark calm confidence radiating like he owned the place. His presence alone could make people step back, and many did. He stretched slowly, moving with the ease of someone who had done this 1,000 times, his expression a mixture of arrogance and certainty. Then, almost silently, Bruce Lee appeared. No dramatic entrance, no show of force, just a calm, focused figure walking into the arena. His gaze was sharp, piercing, as if he could see everything happening in the room at once. The crowd immediately sensed it. Whispers began, "That's Bruce Lee." "Wait, is that really him?" Phones were raised, recording. The tension in the air was tangible, like electricity waiting to spark. Steven smirked, thinking he had already read the situation. "I know every trick in the book," he thought. But Bruce didn't move to show off. He simply stood, centered, every muscle coiled but relaxed, every breath controlled. There was no rush, no aggression. Yet, in that stillness, he radiated power, a magnetic force that pulled the eyes of every spectator. The audience held their breath. Some leaned forward, trying to anticipate what would happen first. Every second stretched longer than the last. You could feel the tension building. Two masters of martial arts. One poised to strike, the other calm but clearly ready for anything. And then, almost imperceptibly, Bruce shifted his weight. A tiny movement no one could fully notice. But those who knew, even slightly, understood. Something extraordinary was about to happen. 7 seconds. That was all it would take. 7 seconds that would shock everyone in that room, and anyone who saw this later online, forever. The crowd had no idea yet, but what they were about to witness would not just be a fight. It would be a display of speed, focus, and power unlike anything anyone had seen before. And for Steven, confidence would soon collide with reality in a way he could never have imagined. Where are you watching this from? Comment your city or country. Let's see how far this story reaches. The air was thick with anticipation. Steven Seagal's smirk had shifted slightly. There was a flicker of doubt in his eyes, though he refused to show it. The crowd leaned closer, sensing the tension, their phones raised, capturing every subtle movement. Every second felt like a lifetime. Bruce Lee didn't make a move, yet his presence dominated the space. Every eye in the dojo was locked on him, every heartbeat syncing with the unspoken challenge that hung between the two legends. Steven started first, moving with his usual controlled precision. A series of practice stances, his hands slicing through the air like knives. He wanted to intimidate, to show that experience and size could overpower even a smaller, leaner opponent. But Bruce didn't react the way anyone expected. He didn't flinch, didn't shift aggressively, didn't even blink in the same way the audience anticipated. He simply observed, measuring, calculating. Every subtle twitch of Steven's muscles, every weight shift, was noted. The crowd could feel it. Bruce wasn't nervous, and he wasn't rushing. He was calm, almost unnervingly so. His eyes followed Steven's every move with the precision of a hawk hunting prey, yet there was no sign of immediate attack. The contrast was electrifying. Steven's forceful movements, intended to dominate, were being absorbed, studied, and anticipated. The mental battle had begun. While Steven tried to project dominance, Bruce's stillness was like a trap. The crowd could feel it, the tension, the anticipation. Mentally, everyone was leaning forward, trying to predict what would happen next. But Bruce wasn't playing by any predictable rules. It was almost as if time slowed around him, every tiny twitch magnified, every subtle motion amplified in the minds of those watching. Then came the first subtle shift. Bruce moved his weight slightly forward, almost imperceptibly, yet the crowd noticed it instantly. Even seasoned martial artists whispered among themselves, "That's it. He's about to strike." Steven didn't notice it, too focused on projecting control. Bruce's calm eyes, however, were telling a different story. 7 seconds to decide everything. The energy in the dojo reached its peak. You could almost hear the crowd holding its collective breath. Phones captured every angle, but even the cameras couldn't capture the raw tension, the psychological trap Bruce had set. He didn't need to attack yet. The anticipation alone was enough to disorient even a master like Steven. If you were here, could you predict Bruce Lee's next move? Comment, stand, or retreat. Let's see who thinks they could handle his speed. The stage was set. Bruce's calm, calculated patience was a weapon in itself, mentally trapping Steven. The audience, too, was caught in this invisible web of suspense, their minds racing, hearts pounding. Everyone knew something extraordinary was about to happen, and in just 7 seconds, the impossible would become reality. The dojo, once just a place of training, had transformed into a mental battlefield. Steven's arrogance was meeting Bruce's legendary focus, and the crowd could feel it in every nerve. The first move wasn't physical, it was psychological. And Bruce Lee, in his silence, had already won half the battle. The moment had come. 7 seconds, or maybe a fraction less, hung in the air like a tightly wound spring, ready to snap. Steven Seagal's confidence, though carefully maintained, had begun to show tiny cracks. His eyes darted subtly, trying to read Bruce Lee's calm expression, to anticipate the unpredictable. But Bruce wasn't giving anything away. Every inch of him radiated discipline, speed, and focus. The dojo felt smaller, almost claustrophobic, as if the two warriors had created an invisible bubble where only their movements mattered. Then it happened. A subtle, almost imperceptible shift in Bruce's stance, his weight moved slightly forward, his left foot barely lifting, a tiny flick of his shoulder. No one else could notice it unless they were trained to see it, but for Steven, that fraction of a second could have made all the difference. And yet, Steven didn't see it coming. In the next heartbeat, Bruce exploded. A flurry of precise, lightning-fast strikes, each movement fluid, each strike perfectly measured. It wasn't just physical speed, it was intelligence in motion. Every punch, every kick, every subtle adjustment in his stance was calculated to dominate without wasted energy. The crowd gasped as Steven raised his arms to block, but Bruce's speed was overwhelming. Movements blurred, almost impossible to track. Phones recorded, but even their slow-motion replays couldn't capture the raw speed. Steven's confidence faltered. The smirk he had worn earlier vanished, replaced by rapid calculations and the slightest hint of panic. He tried to adjust, to defend, but Bruce's first strike was already mental as well as physical. The psychological trap tightened. Every strike seemed to anticipate Steven's reactions, making him feel slower than he actually was. The dojo was filled with an almost tangible tension, the audience leaning forward in disbelief, hearts pounding in sync with the lightning-fast action unfolding before them. Bruce's eyes, calm and unwavering, locked onto Steven. In that gaze was a silent message. This is mastery. This is control. This is discipline at a level you cannot match. The audience could almost feel the invisible pressure, as if Bruce's focus alone could bend the environment around him. Steven flinched at an unseen strike, even before it landed, as Bruce's anticipation seemed to predict the tiniest muscle movement. The crowd couldn't stop whispering. "Did you see that? He's unreal. That's 7 seconds? That felt like an eternity." Even seasoned martial artists were holding their breath, mentally analyzing, trying to predict the next move. But there was no prediction possible. Bruce Lee was in a different rhythm, a pace the human mind could barely comprehend. And then, As quickly as it began, it paused. Bruce froze for a heartbeat-perfect control, like a predator surveying the aftermath of a swift hunt. Steven stumbled slightly, catching himself, realizing too late that he had been mentally and physically outmatched. His arrogance had been replaced by calculation, and even that calculation wasn't enough. If you were Steven, could you have defended yourself? Comment, stand, or retreat. Let's see who thinks they could handle Bruce Lee's speed. The tension didn't break. Not yet. The crowd, mentally exhausted from watching, leaned in closer. They felt trapped in Bruce's mastery, every second stretching into eternity, every movement a lesson in focus, speed, and discipline. This wasn't just a fight anymore. It was a demonstration of pure martial genius. Bruce's first strike wasn't the end. It was a statement. A message that speed, precision, and mental clarity could dismantle arrogance in mere seconds. And Steven, confident moments ago, now faced the stark reality. He had underestimated a legend. The dojo, once a place of practice, had transformed into a stage of awe. Every spectator knew they were witnessing something historic, something so fast, so precise, that the human mind struggled to comprehend it. And Bruce wasn't done. The next moves were coming, faster, sharper, and even more unstoppable. The dojo had gone silent, but the silence was heavy like the calm before a hurricane. Steven Seagal had been confident just moments ago. He had entered with a smirk, with the unshakable belief that experience, size, and reputation could overpower anyone. But now, that smirk was gone, replaced with a flash of uncertainty. Every movement he made was slower, calculated, as if trying to catch up to something already beyond him. And it was, Bruce Lee's strikes had left the audience speechless. They had seen precision, speed, and control that defied comprehension. But the real shock wasn't just physical, it was mental. Bruce's calm, unwavering focus had trapped Steven's mind. Every flinch, every reaction, every twitch of muscle was anticipated. The legend of Bruce Lee wasn't just in his fists, it was in his mind. And in those 7 seconds, the truth had become clear. Steven Seagal was facing someone who operated on a level far beyond human instinct. The first reaction from Steven was subtle. A twitch of his shoulder, a hesitation in his footwork, a glance that lingered too long on Bruce's eyes. And in that brief moment, the audience could sense the shift. Confidence was crumbling, replaced with calculation and panic disguised as control. He tried to regain his composure, to remind himself of his own skill, but the dojo betrayed him. Every whisper, every gasp, every camera lens focused on Bruce, magnifying his presence and making Steven feel smaller, slower, and more exposed. Bruce didn't need to raise his voice or move aggressively. His calm dominance, like a predator observing prey, had Steven on edge. The crowd could feel it. People leaned forward, some clutching their seats, others standing on tiptoe, trying to process the speed they had just witnessed. It wasn't just awe, it was disbelief. Is this even human? Some whispered. Phones recorded every frame, but the camera could never capture the tension, the psychological trap Bruce had set. Steven's attempts to strike back became slower, less confident. His movements, once deliberate and intimidating, now seemed reactive. Every attack was anticipated, every defense calculated against, and every motion mirrored or neutralized before it could land. He realized painfully that the battle wasn't just about physical strength, it was mental. Bruce had taken control of the space, of the audience's attention, and most importantly, of Steven's mind. The audience held its collective breath. Bruce Lee moved almost imperceptibly, a slight lean, a subtle shift of weight, a flick of his wrist, and the crowd gasped again. Every eye followed, but no one could predict the next move. It was as if Bruce had slowed time, bending perception, making every second feel like an eternity. The mental trap was complete. The audience was trapped in awe. Stephen was trapped in disbelief, and Bruce was untouchable in calm precision. Have you ever faced someone so skilled it felt impossible to keep up? Comment yes or no. Let's see who has experienced this level of speed and control. The dojo had transformed into a theater of suspense. Every whisper, every gasp, every reaction fed into the tension, amplifying the moment. Stephen's shock wasn't just visible, it was contagious. The crowd felt it in their bones. His miscalculations, his slowed reflexes, and his faltering confidence created a spectacle that left everyone mentally and emotionally trapped. Unable to look away, Bruce Lee didn't gloat. He simply existed in the eye of the storm, calm, precise, and unstoppable. The audience knew something historic was unfolding, something that would be remembered, replayed, and marveled at for decades. The lesson was clear. Speed, focus, and discipline could dismantle arrogance in moments. And in that dojo, Steven Seagal was learning it the hardest way imaginable. The dojo's atmosphere had transformed completely. It was no longer just a showdown between two martial artists, it was a spectacle. A mental and physical storm in which only one would dominate. Steven Seagal's earlier confidence had evaporated, replaced by tense calculation and desperation. His eyes flickered, trying to anticipate Bruce Lee's next move, but it was already too late. The calm, controlled master was about to unleash the full extent of his dragon power. Bruce Lee's movements were almost imperceptible at first. A tiny shift of his shoulder, a subtle pivot of his foot, a barely there bend of his knees. Yet these micro-adjustments carried the weight of precision, speed, and deadly intent. The audience could feel the shift. Every spectator instinctively leaned forward, phones raised, hearts pounding. Whispers echoed, "It's coming. He's about to unleash it." Then, in an explosion of controlled energy, Bruce moved. In just 7 seconds, the sequence unfolded like lightning fluid, precise, unstoppable. Each strike, each kick, each defensive maneuver was perfectly calculated to dismantle Stephen's offense. Bruce's speed was blinding, yet there was no chaos. It was a dance, a deadly choreography that left the crowd in awe and Stephen scrambling. Stephen tried to counter, to block, to maintain control, but it was useless. Every strike from Bruce anticipated his reaction. Every step mirrored his intent before he could commit. The audience could almost see the mental trap snapping shut around Stephen, leaving him isolated, exposed, and overwhelmed. His arms moved too slowly, his stance too rigid, his mind racing too late. Bruce's mastery had made him feel small, powerless, and astonished. The mental and emotional tension in the room was unbearable. Every gasp, every whisper from the crowd amplified Bruce's presence. Phones recorded every frame, but even slow-motion footage couldn't capture the precision, the intensity, the perfect balance of speed and control. The dojo had become a theater of awe, each spectator mentally living through the 7 seconds of unstoppable dragon power. Bruce's calm face betrayed no emotion, no rush, no arrogance. His eyes, focused and piercing, projected discipline and power. The audience could feel it. This wasn't just martial arts. This was a master imposing his will with perfection, teaching a lesson in focus, speed, and control. Stephen's disbelief was contagious. Every eye on him saw the realization. He had underestimated a legend. The room was a storm of mental tension. Spectators felt trapped in the sequence, unable to look away. Every punch, kick, and step was both mesmerizing and terrifying. Stephen's faltering confidence only made the display more dramatic. The dragon had truly been unleashed, and the mental trap around Stephen was complete. The audience's hearts raced in sync with the rapid-fire strikes. every second stretching into eternity. Could you have handled Bruce Lee's speed and focus? Comment YES if you think you could keep up, or nitrogen monoxide if you'd be overwhelmed. 7 seconds. That's all it took. In a blink, the balance of power had shifted completely. Steven staggered, shaken, humbled, and the crowd erupted in a mix of awe and disbelief. Bruce Lee stood, calm, composed, and untouchable, having proven not just his physical mastery, but his dominance of mind, focus, and spirit. The lesson was clear. The dragon's power wasn't just in his fists, it was in his focus, his precision, and his ability to trap the mind as quickly as he moved the body. The audience knew they were witnessing history, a display of skill so fast, so precise, so mentally and emotionally commanding that it would be remembered forever. The dojo had transformed into something almost surreal. The air was thick with tension, the kind of energy that makes every heartbeat feel louder than usual. Steven Seagal, once brimming with confidence, now staggered mentally as much as physically. The dragon's power had not only overwhelmed his body, but had trapped his mind in a way that he could neither anticipate nor escape. Every move he attempted was met with flawless precision, each counter from Bruce Lee cutting through his strategy like a razor. Bruce remained calm, poised, untouchable. He didn't need to gloat. Every strike, every step, every subtle shift of weight told the story of a master who had complete control over himself, his opponent, and the attention of everyone in the room. Steven's confidence had evaporated entirely. His attempts at defense were sloppy, delayed, and reactive. The audience could see the mental strain in his eyes, the realization that he was outmatched in every possible way. The crowd itself became part of the tension, leaning forward, collectively holding their breath. Phones captured every motion, every subtle nuance of Bruce's movements. But even technology couldn't fully convey the intensity of what was happening. Witnesses whispered to one another, stunned, "He's untouchable. There's no way Steven can keep up." Some even covered their mouths, unable to believe what they were seeing. Bruce's dragon power wasn't just about speed, it was about focus, precision, and timing. 7 seconds had already been enough to shatter Steven's mental armor. Every strike, every pivot, every step was a calculated, unstoppable force. Steven tried to adjust, tried to anticipate, but the dragon had already anticipated him. His flinches, his reactions, his very thought processes seemed to be choreographed by Bruce's awareness, making the legendary martial artist look almost prophetic in his movements. And then came the final moments of the sequence. Bruce shifted his weight subtly, a movement so small it was nearly imperceptible, and with it, the full impact of his dominance became undeniable. Steven stumbled backward, breath uneven, arms raised in desperation but ineffective. The crowd erupted not in fear, but in pure astonishment. Phones recorded the scene, hands shook, whispers turned into exclamations. "I can't believe it. He's faster than the eye can follow." Have you ever seen someone so skilled it feels impossible to keep up? Comment YEs if Bruce Lee's speed amazed you, or nitrogen monoxide if you think you could react. Bruce didn't celebrate. He remained centered, composed, and respectful. His mastery had been absolute, yet he showed the discipline that defined him, a true legend demonstrating not arrogance but control. The audience, mentally and emotionally trapped by the speed, precision, and drama, felt awe ripple through the room. Even Steven, humbled, could only watch as the dragon's power settled around him like an invisible cage. It wasn't just physical domination. It was mental and emotional. Every viewer, whether in the dojo or watching on video, felt the trap. The dragon's presence forced them to witness mastery in a way that was almost overwhelming. Every thought raced, could I react this fast? Could I control myself like that? The tension was not just on the fighters, but in every mind watching. As Bruce Lee stood calm and composed, the audience erupted in uncontained admiration. Steven retreated slightly, recognizing that this was not just a contest of skill, but a display of mastery that transcended size, experience, or reputation. Bruce had proven something fundamental. Focus, speed, and discipline could dismantle arrogance and overwhelm even the most confident opponent. The dojo, once a place of practice, had become a stage for history. Bruce Lee had trapped Steven's confidence, dominated the moment, and left everyone in awe. 7 seconds had changed everything. And for the audience, the emotional and mental impact would linger long after the dojo was empty. The dojo had fallen into a stunned silence, broken only by murmurs of awe and disbelief. Bruce Lee stood calm, his chest rising and falling with perfect rhythm, eyes still sharp and focused. Steven Seagal, once a towering figure of confidence, now looked humbled, shaken, and deeply aware of the lesson he had just experienced. The dragon's power had not just been physical, it had dismantled ego, confidence, and expectation in a matter of seconds. The crowd erupted, not in chaos, but in pure admiration. Phones recorded the aftermath, hands shook, and spectators whispered frantically, "I've never seen anything like this." That was unreal. Every camera captured Bruce's composure, Steven's stunned reaction, and the energy of a room that had witnessed history unfold. But even the footage couldn't capture the mental and emotional impact and awe. The disbelief, the respect for a man who had controlled space, time, and perception in a single devastating performance. Bruce's legacy was more than speed. It was precision, discipline, and control. He hadn't needed to boast or show aggression. The dragon's presence alone had dominated the moment. Steven's retreat, subtle but undeniable, confirmed it. Every observer, mentally trapped by the intensity of what they had witnessed, understood that Bruce Lee had just demonstrated mastery unlike anything seen before. As the crowd processed the display, conversations erupted. Spectators recounted Bruce's moves over and over in their minds, trying to dissect them. Even martial artists and fans alike admitted it was beyond comprehension. How could someone move that fast, predict that accurately, and remain completely calm? The question hung in the air, echoing in every mind present. Bruce had mentally and emotionally trapped the audience just as effectively as he had Steven. News of the showdown spread immediately. Clips were uploaded online, and within hours, the video went viral. Millions of people worldwide watched in awe as Bruce Lee's dragon power unfolded in just 7 seconds. Comments flooded in. Admiration, disbelief, and excitement. Everyone wanted to discuss the legendary display. Social media erupted with reactions. He doesn't just fight, he controls reality. 7 seconds changed everything. I can't believe how fast and precise he is. Yet Bruce remained humble. He didn't gloat, didn't mock, didn't even raise his voice. The message was clear. Mastery wasn't about ego, it was about focus, discipline, and respect. The dragon's power had humbled a legend, inspired a crowd, and mentally trapped millions of viewers around the world. The lesson transcended martial arts. Control your mind, master your craft, and humility always amplifies true power. If you believe skill, focus, and discipline beat arrogance every time, type dragon in the comments. And subscribe for more legendary showdowns like this one. By the end of the day, the story had reached hundreds of thousands online. Millions would soon witness it, and Bruce Lee's legend grew even larger. Steven Seagal would never forget the lesson, and the audience had experienced something rare, a perfect combination of speed, skill, mental dominance, and emotional awe. 7 seconds had rewritten the narrative. 7 seconds had trapped minds, hearts, and imaginations. 7 seconds had cemented a legacy. The dojo doors closed, but the impact lingered. Every viewer, every spectator, every fan carried the story in their minds. The dragon had been unleashed, and nothing would ever be the same again.